Hello everybody and welcome back to the Eternal Watch, where I love to talk about anything related to science fiction or fantasy. Today I'm going to be returning for a Marvel video. Recently we had Thor Love and Thunder, the newest film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, drop in cinemas, and I was lucky enough to go and see it yesterday on Saturday. So in this video I'm just going to be basically reviewing the film, sharing my thoughts on it. If you want to share your thoughts on it as well, please do comment down below, I'd really appreciate that. Also subscribe to the channel if you enjoy my content, and like the video if you enjoy it. So without further ado, let's begin the review, and I hope you enjoy it. So, just my general sort of thoughts on the film first. I went into Thor Love and Thunder I wasn't expecting any sort of masterpiece, like No Way Home or Winter Soldier or Endgame. I was really just knowing that this is a Taika Waititi fun, goofy comedy that wasn't going to win any awards. And it's a pretty good mindset to go in for, because it delivers upon that, and I feel it's actually really good as a fun, light comedy. When the other projects we've had this year, like the first two, Moon Knight and Multiverse of Madness, are both very dark and very grim, and it's nice to have something that's just a bit more light and colourful and, has a bit more childlike imagination to it. It absolutely delivers upon the comedy. It's an absolutely hilarious film, especially with characters like Korg. I feel it's really brilliant. There are some slight plot holes. The plot isn't entirely consistent, and there's some weird, characters and items somehow just randomly have new abilities that could have been very helpful in previous films, but the plot may be a bit flimsy, and maybe the plot is slightly generic. I'll get onto that later. Overall, if you don't think about the plot itself too much, it's actually quite a fun film. It really does deliver upon the comedy. The whole cinema laughed several times during this film, and it's just proof that Taika Waititi, he knows how to make a comedy. I don't think it was quite as good, on the level as Thor Ragnarok, but it was certainly, on the better end of the Thor films, I'd say. So as for the plot of this film, we've got Gorr the Godbutcher, who's a guy who, his daughter died because a god didn't help them, and it turns out his god basically betrayed him, and then he steals this, MacGuffin necro sword thing from him, kills him, and now he's sworn to kill all gods, and he has done lots of times before, and he ends up targeting New Asgard and Thor, and there's a big battle there. He kills he doesn't kill, he kidnaps loads of children, takes them to his, domain, locks them in a cage, and then basically Thor has to go and rescue them. Now, the main thing that makes, this is one of the main selling points of the film, is that there's a new Thor. Jane Foster, the love interest from the first two films, is back, and she's Thor now. I'll talk more about her later on, but there's that plot going alongside as well. She has stage 4 cancer, and so basically in becoming Thor, she feels really powerful, but it's actually weakening her and basically making her cancer even worse. She ends up, spoiler alert, by the way, she ends up dying at the end of the film, and she goes to Valhalla because she died in battle, which doesn't entirely make sense because she kind of didn't, but, again, plot holes. So I quite like that it's a very contained plot. Like in Ragnarok, we had the main Sakaar plot, and then we also had other side plots, like, Hela, recruiting Scourge as an assistant, and then her taking over Asgard. I feel that was a bit of a boring side plot, really, that really, took out of the action and removed the tension we had from all the Sakaar stuff. I feel it was just sort of to draw things out, and, we've got to have some explanation of how Hela's now the queen, and that's what it does. But it's very contained. There aren't really any subplots. The entire, the mission that Thor, Jane, Valkyrie, and Korg are on is the plot. It doesn't deviate from that at all. It's consistently focused on those four characters. It is very, very contained. We do have some scenes of, the kids in the cage, but usually they're, communicating with Thor. It's a very self-contained story. It's quite a short film as well. It's an hour and 59 minutes, which, it is very short for a Marvel film. We haven't had one that short since, I think it was Thor the Dark World, the second entry in the franchise. I quite like how it's not overly plot heavy, really. The plot it's quite generic, there's a big bad guy, He wants to kill the protagonist, kidnaps loads of children, locks them in a cage, on his planet, and they've got to go on a mission and get a weapon to kill the bad guy, and then go and kill the bad guy. They lose. There's a sad moment on Earth, and then they go back and do kill him. It's a little bit more complex than that, but fundamentally that's what the film is. It's a very generic cliche plot that it could have done with a bit of work. While it's not overly plot heavy and it doesn't need to be as a comedy, it does feel a little bit lazy to me, to be honest. Either way, though, it's a fine enough plot, and while the concept is a pretty flimsy plot, it's executed alright. Now, speaking of how it's executed well, let's get on to the main villain of this film, and what I think is the standout, Christian Bale as Gorr the Godbutcher, the main villain of this. I was going into this with literally no comic book knowledge of Gorr the Godbutcher, or really any experience with Christian Bale as an actor. I hadn't really seen anything he's in before. I know that's probably heresy of me, considering I have a film review channel. But still, I wasn't overly hyped for the character because I hadn't known him before. But honestly, he's fantastic. Like, definitely a top 5 level villain. I haven't really done a villain ranking, but he's definitely up there with, for me, Thanos, Loki, probably Wenwu as well. All of those are fantastic villains, and this guy's no exception. From the first 5 minutes, you get a very strong sense that this guy is a clear-cut, he's a villain with clear-cut motivations. His daughter died because of a god who betrayed him, and he wants to kill all gods. He's a villain that makes sense, and he doesn't just want to be evil for the sake of it. Like Thor the Dark World, we have Malekith, a dark elf. He's literally just evil for the sake of being evil. He has no motivations or character, and I think that's a shame because he's played by Christopher Eccleston, who's a bit of a legend in Doctor Who. But yeah, Christian Bale as Gorr the Godbutcher, he's honestly fantastic. He plays him very well as well, like a very sort of creepy attitude towards him. He has he has like comedic tinges as well, which I feel is works with the film, but I don't know, it feels like a weird blending of genres. Like, I feel Gorr might have been a bit too dark of a villain for this film, and I feel it's strange they chose to go with Gorr the Godbutcher, a very dark and sinister villain, for a film that is literally a comedy, and it's called Thor: Love and Thunder. Like, it's a bit of a strange choice, and it's a very, very weird choice for a villain, but honestly, I'm not complaining. I feel someone like Beta Ray Bill would have been a lot better a villain. Honestly, I'm not complaining, though. Gorr was fantastic, definitely the standout in this film. So now we get on to the next section of this video, that being the visuals, the CGI, how the film looks, and honestly, as for the visuals, they're gorgeous, honestly. I feel this is a very nice looking Marvel film. The cinematography isn't as quirky or unique as Multiverse of Madness or Miss Marvel has been, or even Moon Knight to a certain extent. It's not been on the same level as that. The camera just does kind of sit there. They don't really try anything new or different, but do they need to? They have the formula, and the formula works. The visuals themselves are very pretty, very bright and colourful, which should be the case considering it's a Taika Waititi film, and fundamentally, as I'm saying a lot in this video, but it's true, a comedy film. Much like Ragnarok, it's very bright, very colourful, lots of like, poppy 80s music, like we've got lots of we've got like Welcome to the Jungle, we've got Sweet Child of Mine, lots of Guns N' Roses sort of music. That's another positive of this film. The soundtrack is just, it's fantastic. Well, the original score is okay, but the music, the other music they use is brilliant. It really, really does suit the character of Thor. Well, this version of Thor anyway. I'll get on to that. The CGI is good for the most part. It's up to scratch. It's not fantastic. You can definitely tell it's CGI, but it's not off-putting most of the time. There are some janky there's some janky stuff with Korg. He doesn't actually look too great in this, which I think is weird because he looked fantastic in Ragnarok. But what can you expect when you have a character entirely made of blue rocks? And for the second and third acts of the film, he's just a face, which I thought was quite comedic. We have some nice set pieces as well. Like we've got the whole the temple of it's Temple of Eternity, that was it. That looks really, really good. I'll get onto that battle later. We also have Omnipotent City, the city which Thor and co go to get the lightning bolt from Zeus. Again, this is sounding like a very formulaic and boring story, which, again, as I said, the plot is very generic. But Omnipotent City looks absolutely fantastic. I think it, all the golds and whites, it was very regal. But yeah, generally, the film is very visually striking, very colourful, besides a certain scene, well, scenes, whatever. A decent portion of the film is a battle on Gorr's his planet, which is entirely in black and white, which I thought was a really interesting take to do. Like, we have this entire fight scene, and it's entirely monochrome, besides the blue and yellow lightning created by Mjolnir, Stormbreaker, and the lightning rod. I thought that was a really cool choice to do. It looks very effective, it looks very nice, and gives a bit of a darker tone in an otherwise very light comedy. I feel it's very interesting that they decided to go that way with the visuals, but I think it looks stunning, to be honest. That whole fight scene and the CGI as well for that battle is brilliant. Next section of this video, by the way, I'm doing it in like sections now rather than the good and the bad. I'm just doing, well, you know the sections, the plot, the villain, and I'm doing some more of the visuals. Anyway, next section, the comedy. We can't talk about a comedy film without talking about the comedy itself. And as I said before, it's a hilarious film. We have loads of jokes, and it's just very fun. Like, loads of people in the cinema I was seeing at laughed several times throughout the film because it's just fantastic. Korg is a very strong source of comedy. Taika Waititi himself plays the voice of Korg. He's fantastic. We've got some great stuff there about how Cronin babies are made with the holding hands over a lava pit. That was funny, and then him at the end actually doing it with was it a rock named Dwayne, which I thought was quite a good gag. We have little bits as well, like the whole flashback scene where Thor has Nick Fury as Nick Fury in his phone, which actually carries on from a little Marvel one-shot they did a while back called Team Thor. We'll talk about that another day, though. The one-shots are fantastic. Lots of comedy from Thor as well. Thor, lots of jokes. He's very much a joker in both films, Ragnarok and this. I just have a very strong complaint with Thor's character in this, though. That being, he's too funny. He's presented as a bit of a joke, and I think that's kind of a shame because Wanda, she lost her husband. The events of WandaVision happened. She lost her kids from that, and then she kills loads of people. Goes on basically a killing spree in Multiverse of Madness, and ends up deciding it was so painful, the entire thing, that she kills herself, which she doesn't. We'll get onto that another day as well. But Wanda had such an extreme reaction to losing Vision, who she'd known for about 5 years. Hang on. No, 3 years. And her children, who she knew for about a week. And then Thor loses his mum, his dad, who he knew for over 1,000 years, his brother, 3 times, who he knew for over 1,000 years, his best friend, he probably knew for the same amount of time, his girlfriend, his hammer, one of his eyes, and his home planet, and he's still a Joker. What? Why present him as this jokey character? Like, Ragnarok, I feel, was a good balance. You could tell that he was using his comedy as a guise for his depression as to everything that's happening, and you can tell that very clearly, both through Chris Hemsworth acting and the writing in the film. He's presented as purely a source of comedy, and I don't think that's a very good idea for the protagonist, even in a comedy. I don't know, I feel they played too much into the comedic aspect, and it just comes off as cheap and lazy to me. I get that, he's using comedy to mask his depression, but no, I feel it's very lazy of Taika to just go that route and not give him any real development here, and instead just make him the Joker. There are definitely emotional moments in this, but they're undercut by comedy from Thor. I'm fine with other characters being comedic. Valkyrie and Korg are both literally sources of comedy. That's their entire purpose. They're great and likeable, but that is their function. They are the comedic relief. The protagonist should not be the comedy relief. Anyway, yeah, Rant Over, I was not actually a huge fan of that. Um, there's some other, little jokes that we've got to mention here. The Screaming Goats. Lots of people saying they were grating and annoying by the end. They were funny. They were fine. They weren't the greatest. They weren't peak comedy. I feel this isn't even the funniest MCU film. I'd say it's Guardians. Probably Guardians 2. Alternatively, maybe Ragnarok or Ant-Man. No, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yeah, they're all strong contenders. But anyway, yeah, it's a very funny film. And I did enjoy the comedy for the most part, but not when it's by Thor, and it's... yeah, I'm not going to go into another rant about that. Now let's talk about the action in this. We can't talk about an MCU film without the action. And, we have some major fight scenes. It's kind of standard structure. We have one at the end of the first act. Gorr and his shadow monster things. You get these like weird eldritch monsters that Gorr can somehow create from shadows, I'm guessing using the Necro Sword. He attacks New Asgard. There's a big battle. That's where Thor first finds Jane. It's an okay battle scene, really, just kind of standard Thor stuff. We have the scene before with the Guardians where he's destroying all those bad guy ships, isn't he? That scene was really weird. Anyway, the main highlight of the action in this film is the monochrome fight scene. I think the choreography was brilliant, what with the Necro Sword, Mjolnir Stormbreaker, the Lightning Rod, all of these brilliant weapons. It just looks really cool and satisfying to watch all these battles. And again, it looks visually striking, so that just adds to it. I feel that whole monochrome, slice of time in the film is honestly its highlight. I feel it's absolutely fantastic. Everything with Gorr, everything with the fight scene, and the visuals, it just looks fantastic. We have a big fight scene at the end, set in eternity, where Thor basically enchants all of these, the kids pick up all of these weapons and now they're released, and then Thor enchants them all, and he's like, they shall possess the power of Thor, and it's a big epic moment, and they all go all lightningy. The whole thing with the kids fighting the shadow monsters was a bit cringe, but it's a fun, goofy comedy. Don't take it too seriously. And yeah, that whole scene was actually pretty cool, like all the fighting with Thor versus Gorr. Looked fantastic again, and then we got the stuff with Jane returning as the Deus Ex Machina. I thought it was brilliant, to be honest. And then Valkyrie and Korg, they have some stuff to do, not really that much, to be honest. And then we also have this little fight scene in Omnipotent City against all of the Zeus's guards after they kill him. That was alright too, a nice little bit of fighting to disperse the dialogue. That's pretty standard in MCU films, just, a random spat of fighting. Now on to the last couple of sections. In this video, we've got to talk about one of the very main selling points and plot points within this film, Jane Foster as the Mighty Thor. Now, I didn't really think much of it when she was announced. I thought, okay, this could be interesting. I wasn't a huge fan of her character in Thor and Thor the Dark World. I thought, yeah, she's just sort of a generic love interest. She doesn't really matter that much. She's just there to provide some development for the main character, and that was mostly her purpose, to elevate Thor as a character. Now she's actually kind of come into her own, and she's actually... I was pleasantly surprised by how well they handled it. Like, I wasn't thrilled that she was going to be another Thor, because I'm not a huge fan of just replacing the main characters. Even if they did exist in the comics ages ago, I'd rather them come up with original characters, like, I'll get onto it. Actually, I might as well talk about it now. They seem to be replacing all of the original Avengers with just other versions of themselves, female or not. I don't really care about that. I know loads of idiots are complaining about that aspect, which is dumb. But, we've got Yelena, Black Widow, we've got Kate as Hawkeye, She-Hulk, Mighty Thor, we'll have Riri Williams instead of Iron Man, and we have another version of Captain America now. They're just replacing the original six, and I don't want them to do that. Sure, have a couple, but you have all these other characters that are still here. Doctor Strange, this Thor, Spider-Man, Scarlet Witch, maybe. There's loads of characters that they can choose from, but they're just replacing all of them, which is why I'm glad, and I hate to say this, I'm glad she died. It was very sad when she did, but she doesn't seem like a character that needed to be in, you know, a big part in the future of the MCU. Very much just, you know, a sort of one-hit wonder, and she was great. I actually really enjoyed Natalie Portman's performance as Jane here. I think she was pretty cool. All the stuff about needing a catchphrase, that was a bit cringy. You know, not the best piece of comedy that Taika's done, but you know, I did enjoy Jane as Thor. I feel the whole the new abilities that she seems to have about, you know, like disassembling the broken Mjolnir and reassembling it. It's a bit strange. Why didn't Thor do that? Like, you know, but yeah, I quite like Jane for the most part, and I feel the whole plot about her cancer really threw me off. I did not expect that whole thing to happen. Like, it was very surprising to me. You know, I didn't have that on my bingo card for this film. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, Jane, good. Now for the ending and post-credit scenes. The ending of this film surprised me quite a lot, because Thor, so Gorr dies. Yeah, that's going to happen. He sacrificed himself to eternity to save his daughter. I don't even think his daughter's named yet, but basically his last dying request to Thor is that he look after his daughter. So now Thor has got an adopted daughter, and then it shows this thing of them at the end, and Thor's just being a dad. Yeah, did not have that on my bingo card for this film either. It is a very unexpected plot twist, I think. I mean, that's actually Chris Hemsworth's daughter, for anyone who didn't know. I found that out just on the drive home. And she was good. She doesn't really have much dialogue, not much to do. She's barely in the film. I'm sure she'll be in the next film. The thing is about this ending, like, at the Thor's, you know, Thor in Endgame has a very open ending. He's going off with the Guardians to have classic Thor adventures. Now he's just sort of, his arc is complete. He's found Jane and lost her again. He feels complete now. He has a daughter. What now? You know, he's kind of done. Maybe, I don't know. Well, we'll talk about the post-credit scenes now. We have two. The first one is Hercules. And Hercules is very, like, I've never heard of him from the comics. He's just sort of a Greek mythological figure. He's the son of Zeus, and Zeus is apparently alive now and wants Hercules to kill Thor for humiliating him. I can't see him being the major villain of the next Thor film, you know, Thor 5, whenever it is, because he's not a huge character, and I just can't see him being the villain. Like, I don't know, he seems like a pretty weak villain, to be honest. I feel Thor could easily beat him, because he beat Zeus, his dad. Speaking of Zeus, I wasn't a fan of him. He was a bit, I don't know, he's supposed to be like the king of gods, and he's not even presented as powerful. He's just a bit of an idiot. But yeah, I'm not overly hyped for that. You know, I'm sure he'll appear in Thor 5 in some capacity. Cool, if Marvel can make him work, that's fine. And you know, well, yeah, they've made, you know, pretty unknown characters very likeable. You know, Iron Man, the Guardians were relatively unknown before. The second post-credit scene is literally, it's basically nothing. It's Jane, she's dead, she's in Valhalla, and Heimdall greets her, and she's just like, Jane Foster, welcome to Valhalla. The Hall of the Gods is up there. The end, cut to black. Like, it's barely anything. It's just basically an excuse for a Heimdall cameo. And, you know, I like Heimdall. Idris Elba's cool. It doesn't really serve much purpose. It's nice to have it in the film, though. I didn't really need to wait 10 minutes for it, though. Anyway, I'm very excited for Thor 5 still. Even if this wasn't quite as good as Ragnarok, it was still a very fun ride. And whenever Thor 5 is, whether it be 2025, 6, or even 7... God forbid, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be good. As long as it's Taika. I think Taika knows what he's doing, to be honest. Anyway, that's all I really have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I might as well do my final thoughts, like I always do a sentence after I've watched a film to describe my thoughts on it. Thor Love and Thunder lacks the epic stakes and spectacle that its predecessor possesses, but still remains a fun action comedy and retains the heart that Ragnarok had. So it's not quite as good as Ragnarok. I think it's better than the first two Thor films though. Taika, he wasn't quite as good as he was before, but he still very much knows how to make a good Thor comedy. I've ranked this an 80 out of 100. Definitely got some faults. but overall is a fun ride. I've got this in 16th out of 36 on my MCU ranking, so certainly up there, but not, definitely not breaking the top 10. So yeah, that's about all I have for this video. Please do, just the standard plugs now. Please listen to my Doctor Who podcast. Well, partially my Doctor Who podcast over on Kavam. I'll leave a link to that in the description, as well as following my audio channel where I produce Doctor Who full cast audio dramas, Dimension 5 audio. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content about science fiction or fantasy, and comment down below with your opinions on Thor, Love and Thunder. That's all I have for this video, everyone. I'll be coming back tomorrow, the 11th of July, for a ranking of all 4 seasons of Stranger Things. See you then, everyone, and goodbye.